Oh, like straight up monsoons. There's people. South Africa's a lot like. In some ways, it's like Hawaii. It's got that. It can be cool. It can be really really warm, but it's like it's like kind of a little hot and humid. But yeah, we had some extreme weather of lightning striking some of these trees, and we had trees really all over the city, just busted because of the lightning that had struck. I'd never seen that before, but I took pictures, and the lightning bolts hit, and that just absolutely shredded the trunks of the trees. So that was some real extreme weather that I was able to see. When I surfed out in Tabanchi, I was able to go to the cheetah experience. They're like rehabbing cheetahs and helping them to kind of go back out into the wild. So I was able to lay right next to a cheetah and kind of pet it, and we were able to like go to and see some lion cubs. We weren't able to pet the lion cubs, but we were able to just kind of be around a lot of the animals. And I remember in Pietermaritzburg, and I've taken a picture like right next to an elephant. Like the elephant was like right where this wall is. That's how close I was to that elephant. I was a little scared and like ready to run as soon as something happened. But and then I remember in Swaziland, we were at the watering hole. We saw an alligator just kind of laying out, and then we saw a crocodile just burst out of the water and just lay right on the sand. So it was really really cool. Pack the things that you need. We had. I like enjoyed listening to like conference talks and talks by John Bytheway and Brad Wilcox, and so a lot of those things just kind of helped you. You definitely don't want to be bored the whole time. Like on P days, sometimes it's good to just when you're traveling back and forth to have something to listen to, and then I think just I don't know really with travel. Everything that they kind of give you in the mission packet, just make sure that you have, and then make sure that you have trinkets that you can pick up every now and then. You don't want to be overly obsessed with buying stuff, but Swaziland's no longer in my mission, but in there you'd have like the Manzini market, and I was actually able to carve my whole family's names on a African plate. And then you're able to get designs. So make sure that you have some room to bring some other things home that are sentimental. Oh, and make sure that you have a camera. You're gonna want to make sure you take pictures. Don't become overly obsessed with pictures or buying souvenirs. Just just in time. You'll want to take a couple of things, but don't become overly obsessed with it. It's only a once in a lifetime opportunity if you make it that way. You can always go back. That should be your goal. The greatest life lesson I learned, I think, was rescuing the one. I actually have a pretty sacred experience. I'm not going to divulge the name, but there's a less active return missionary in one of my areas, and the members had said, don't worry about going to him. He's not going to come back to church. And me, being a kind of a young missionary, it's like, okay, challenge accepted. I'm going to go do it. And my companions and I, we were able to work, and we were able to. He came to. I kind of fasted and prayed about what I was doing in this particular area, and he ended up coming to church, and the Spirit just told me, "That's why you're here," and that's what I did. He was living with his girlfriend at the time, and she became his wife, and it was just an amazing experience in there, striving to go to the temple. So it was really amazing to have that experience. I think the other experience that I had was just loving. When you love people for people, even if people aren't going to join the church, whatever, if you truly have that charity and love for a person, they're going to feel that, and they're going to have that interaction with you. And even if they're not ready to hear the missionary discussions and lessons now, that'll be a stepping stone for later on in life. So I had sheep's head and pig's brain. Those are definitely exotic foods. And then we had chicken feet. And then my favorite of all these was curry, though. So Indian curry is pretty amazing. I gained a lot of weight out of the mission field. My garments were like Nike Pros by the end of it. That's how much weight I gained. Favorite foods, so I love the Indian curries, the chicken tikka masala that they had. It was absolutely amazing. I remember we'd go to an area, and this guy, we just kept on ordering these rotis. It's like the Indian bread that they make, and naans. we just like, hey, can we get 2 more rotis? And they loved having us because we'd order a lot of food and we just eat and we talk with each other. And then I actually, one of the things that I learned from my mom, because I didn't want to starve, was like learning to cook, so I could cook for myself and like not have peanut butter and jelly all the time. So make sure that you do that. All your favorite meals, make sure you learn how to cook, because that will save you a ton when you're like stressing out. But Elder and Sister Lombardi, actually the ones that they got interviewed by you guys as well. I learned a ton of recipes from Sister Lombardi. And those brownies that she makes, those are a great get out of jail free card when you do something wrong out in the mission field. So you make brownies, you're like good to go, because the people are like, oh, Elder Armstrong, will you make those brownies again? And I'm like, sure, yeah. So it was a good opportunity. Oh, and my buddy and I, we made peanut butter bars. Well, that's part of the reason why I started getting a little bit more round in the middle, is because of how many peanut butter bars. And for some reason, we could never eat the whole pan of peanut butter bars. We'd always eat like half, and then the rest of the half would just kind of disappear between like people coming over. But yeah, with all the recipes that you like out in the mission field, I'd ask the people, it's like, hey, how do you cook this? I always ask them, just people would write it down, they give it to me, and I have a little packet of things. And I just, I remember with one of the things that I was able to kind of bond with a sister, she actually lost her husband while the first week that I got there. And over the course of the next 6 months, like whenever they needed blessings, or we just kind of go there, generally we'd visit her once a week and just trying to check up on her and see how she's doing. But we could not leave her house without eating. Like I tried doing that once, and she's like, Elder, I will take off your belt and I will beat you. Sit down and eat. And it was really fun, but that's just like how her culture was. Like, you just, be grateful for the food that people give you. Don't turn it down, just eat. With some of the more exotic foods that I ate with my companions, him and I were just sitting there, I'm like, drink Coke. That stuff they actually told us to drink Coke in the MTC, and that would clean out our systems of some of the more exotic things that we would eat. But you just have some Coke and water, just kind of get it down real fast. The sooner you start, the sooner you finish with some of the foods. But just be grateful for all the food, because a lot of the stuff, even though it might not be the most enticing, it's still delicacies to them, and they want to give you the rest. So that's very important to know and be grateful for it. And just for the stuff that you like, make sure you write it down so then you can cook it later. I've done that, and it's been pretty amazing. So I've honestly loved it. Like having those. Food is just a big thing. I love to eat. So, and it's just, I learned a lot of good recipes. So I was out in Swaziland so I was training a missionary at the time, and here we were traveling back and forth to this place called Gege. So you probably have to like look at Swaziland and like on Google Maps, and you'll like gradually be able to see it's very, very small. I mean, it was all dirt roads. I mean, everywhere it's very, very far to get to really any place. The crazy experience that I had out in Swaziland, my commander and I were driving back home, and granted, like the majority of the cars, like they all did really well, but this one, like generally try to retire the cars after about 100,000 kilometers, and on this particular one, we busted a ball joint, and like we were driving back, and I wasn't driving overly fast, but we're on a dirt road, and we were just driving, and all of a sudden, I'm driving because I'm on the right side, all of a sudden the ball joint snaps while we were driving. But the Spirit was there to just said, calm, just gradually guide it. And then we stopped, like we're probably about that far away from, it wasn't too big of a ditch, but it was about like, probably like 1.5 to 2 feet. But yeah, that was a very crazy day and experience, and we were trying to get back to see somebody, and it didn't work out. But I think that's a good, life lesson, just in missionary work and in life. It's like nothing ever goes according to plan. When those hiccups happen, just kind of laugh and just enjoy the experience, and make sure you write in your journal so you can talk about it later. But yeah, that was probably the most dangerous one. But it happened, and that's like I still kept my driving privileges, so we were good. It wasn't really my fault. It just all of a sudden it snapped. So I'm like, oh, okay. But God does protect you, so just make sure that you are being obedient, and God will take care of you. Weekends, you're going to be like, people tend to, they like to party on the weekends. So I've had some pretty I think I've had a couple of crazy experiences with that. I remember one time I was with my district leader in, it was outside of Petermaritzburg, it's the township outside of Petermaritzburg, and yeah, we were passing by a tavern, and this brother comes out and he's like, hey, pastors, why are you not coming over here and sharing the good word? And we're like, okay. So he went over and talked, and we were talking with him for a little bit, and we're gonna like, okay, we can quickly share a message. And I remember like peeking my head in, and I'm like, hey, is that all right if we come in and we share a message? And yeah, I had this girl came up, and she's like, the very first question, I kid you not, she asked me, she's like, are you married? I'm like, no, I'm a missionary for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And she's like, oh, okay, so you only marry like members of your church? And I'm like, yes. And she's like, oh, okay, well, can I join? I'm like, well, here, since you're talking about marriage, here's a Together Forever DVD. Why don't you call that number there, and you can get that free DVD. And and I turned around to my district leader and like, I was out by the door for him, and I just like walked back. I'm like, oh, okay. And then she comes out, and I had a pen in my pocket, and she comes out, and I'm like just talking right next to my district leader and the other guys that were there. And she comes and she takes my pen, writes her number down, and sticks it back in my pocket. And I'm just like, and then I pull out another card. I'm like, here's another one. And then I give that card to my district leader. I'm like, here, why don't you deal with that? This isn't my area. So that was pretty crazy. I actually had that happen in Swaziland as well. That one was a little bit more. I probably shouldn't go into details on that one, but that was a lot more. Shall we say, risque. I was like, okay, it's time to go. We were just outside, and I just remember this girl asked me some very forward and direct questions about coming to America and her marrying me. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to take you to America. And she asked a couple other kind of a little bit more inappropriate questions that I probably shouldn't say in an interview, but I was like, all right, time to go. So I just said, like, all right, we're not going back there. So just make sure, like with some of those, because you're always going to find people like that, and it's just something, as I said, something to write about. Make sure, going back to what Sister Rip said, write down the funny stuff in your journal, and just anything else, share those experiences. But I remember my family had a good kick out of both of those that had happened. All the lessons that you learned out in the mission field in regards to having charity and love for people, and it's like you didn't care what people did. You just wanted them to come back into the church and to have that and to have that spirit once again in their lives. Make sure that you bring that home with you. The mission experiences that you have, they're meant to be taken home and applied so that you can help build the Lord's kingdom. So make sure that you keep that with you at all times.